Here's Frank Corrado, former Vancouver Canuck TSN hockey analyst. Get ready for the big show on Friday. Frank, how we doing?
What's going on, boys? Maybe afterwards I'll have a little gin. I like
there you
gin.
go. We'll send you a bottle.
Like gin.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
We owe you a bottle because your dad sent us tomato sauce back in the day, so we owe you something in a bottle.
Yes. Sal's famous sauce by the truckload. It showed up at my apartment in Kitsilano.
Next time I'm out there, I'll make sure I'm not carry-on, and I'll bring a little back.
Yeah, there you go.
After it was 4 years ago, after our former radio station went down, Carmen's like, Matt, there's this huge box at the back door. And I bring it in, and sure enough, it is the homemade famous sauce from
Is he still doing it? Is he still making us? Is he still jarring it?
Yeah, every year. Well, you know what happened then? That 4 years ago coincides with him going keto. So he wasn't eating any pasta, and he had no use for the sauce, but we still made it. He's like, we have all this stuff kicking around. I'm like, we got to send that out to Sakaris and the boys out there. So
can't he put it on some meatballs at the very least? Is that still keto?
Yeah, for sure. There was just a lot less pasta going around.
Right.
He went from big Sal to thin Sal.
Yeah.
To
keto Sal.
So
the keto Guido. The
keto Guido.
Let's start with Elias Pettersson, Frank. I'm sure you heard his comments yesterday. And look, he has taken accountability in the past, never with the same sort of tone, self-reflection, awareness. So we're asking on our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question, onwards and upwards from here for EP? What do you think?
If it was that easy, it would have been done by now. But I will say it's a nice step that he's willing to just kind of come out and face it head on, which is not easy to do as a player. I think sometimes when you're as a player, you're in this like fight or flight mentality all the time, where you're constantly trying to defend your game, your pride, and it's hard to kind of face it when you're not playing well, because we always want to have this confidence, okay? And you never want that to waver. But when you finally come to grips and admit that, like, it's not going well, you're not playing well, you're basically saying, I don't have confidence, and you're not fighting that battle anymore. So I think for him to come out and say that the way he did, it obviously speaks to how frustrating it's been for him, but it's an awareness that, like, I'm not gonna kid myself anymore here. Like, I'm willing to really face it head on. It's not an easy thing to do, what he did. You're always in this defensive mode about your game, and so maybe it is onwards and upwards, but I just don't think it doesn't happen at the turn of a dime like that. Like, it still will take some time, but this is just part of the process.
There's a spectrum here that I think he's on. And I'm not sure where he is on it, where, a guy could have a physical injury that he knows is kind of, it's not an injury, but it's the remnants of the injury, that he knows he's weakened there or it's affecting him. He knows it, but he's unwilling to sort of come to terms with it and admit it. More in the middle is he thinks he's fine, but, clearly it's affecting him and he's just unwilling to come to grips with it. Or it's all between his ears and it's just mental and there's a confidence issue and all that. And I don't know where he necessarily is on that spectrum. But would you agree that spectrum exists, and where do you think he is?
It 100% exists. And I think the last one you were talking about, where you say, like, it's all in your head, I think people get to that point because there have been real tangible things that have happened. So you live in that all the time. Like, I found myself living in that towards the end of my career, and not on, not at the NHL level, but just like when you're constantly hurt and you always have nagging stuff and you worry that the next one is around the corner, you could wake up one day and feel 100%, but you're not quite there mentally. And that's because of the buildup of what's happened to you in the past. So I think for him, like, there's obviously been things that have happened that now he's more aware of, but I don't believe that it's just you live in this world where you can't get over this hurdle in your head. Like, you probably still do need to feel like you're 100%, and that's why I think the summer is going to be so important. It's just so hard to get ahead of things when you're skating every day, you're traveling, you're playing games. Like, you almost need to really invest in your summer and say, I'm going to do things that I normally wouldn't have done, whether it's some kind of seeking out, some specialist mentally, a specialist physically for rehab. Maybe you go on a retreat somewhere nice, really clear your head. Like, these are things that, like, high-end executives, high-end athletes, like, these guys do these types of things. So if you're going to do the same old, you might just be heading for the same result next year, even though it's just been more time that has passed. But in order to really get over this thing, you might have to do something a little bit different, because as time goes on, your body's going to heal, but then you have to have your head heal as well. And that's that last little hurdle as far as that progression goes.
Am I too starry-eyed, guys, to think that if he, and sometimes it's just luck where the situation unfolds, he gets a pass down the wing, he's blown the zone a little early, he's in on the break, it's a partial break, and at the top of the circle, he wires one top cheese.
Oh, if that happens tonight, the roof comes off Rogers.
But does that turn around his season? Does if he has a goal that looks like a goal scorer's goal, and it might just happen accidentally, like just the puck just drops to him and he rips one home. Like, would that change, or do you still have to do something additionally here? Can one key moment change it?
I think one key moment can set off a turn of events, but I guess we've been searching for that key moment for a while, and there's been a few things that have happened this year where you're like, okay, that's the one. There was a time when Miller was hurt and he was away from the team, and Pettersson's game looked pretty good, right? Like, we all could have admitted that. The points were there, but then that never led to consistency. And then Four Nations, it's like, this guy's going to get a break from Vancouver. He's going to play with his Swedish buddies. This is going to be the thing. It wasn't the thing. Miller's gone. Like, it's still, like, there's been a number of things that could have been that turning point, but it's never really stuck consistently for him this year. So as much as that would be nice for the confidence of the player, I don't think that's going to be that one thing that really turns it around. Like, it has to be more. It has to be week over week. It has to be month over month. And as the season, like, we're getting there. Like, we're into the home stretch now. And so it's hard to fathom that it's just going to be, a slap shot top cheese that turns things around. That's why I think it's like, this is something that he needs to almost start planning his summer. Not that he's checked out from the season, but start planning your summer right now. And, like, work backwards from whatever the first game is going to be. October 9th. I don't know. But work backwards from there and say, by the beginning of October, I want to be feeling this way. By the beginning of September, I need to be right here. And just go back and then figure it out. But I think that's where the runway has to be for him to really turn this around.
I like that idea because, when you make plans, you feel better about yourself when you've planned ahead. It's good theory.
Yeah, and Frank's not wrong. He had a stretch there of 11 points in 7 games from late November, early December, and just wasn't able to build off that. Honestly, Frank, as much as the words landed pretty well yesterday, I preferred what Talk had said. That in the last 72 hours, he's doing stuff like asking coaches to spend more time with him and getting out there early and working on his game. And because to me, that shows that he's reachable, that he wants to be coached now. Yeah. And that's been an issue in the past. Take us through that. I'm not sure what kind of player you were, but, a player of that immense talent, it has come so easy his whole life, right? The knee jerk is, I got this. I don't need help. I'll get myself out of this. I've been through this before. I'm going to get back there because I'm just that good a player. Whereas now he's actually seeking out help, and I think that is progress as well. In fact,
I don't think
progress than what we heard.
Yeah, I don't think this is the first time that Pettersson has done that in his career, because like I've got to know Bruce Boudreau a little bit now with our work at TSN, and he's talked about it. Like I've asked him straight up, like what is this guy like? He said like he was willing to do that. He was willing to come to me and say, I want to do this, I want to do that. What do I need to do? So it's not the first time that there's been like a communication line between Pettersson and the coach, and Pettersson is the one that initiated it. It's just, it's I think you get to a point as a player where you realize you don't have it and you don't have the answer, and chances are the guy who's calling the shots with the ice time and the deployment and watching hours and hours of video, he might actually have it. So you might have to just go to him and say like, what do you see here? Like let's have a man-to-man talk. And I think for it goes without saying that every player will struggle with confidence. Connor McDavid will, Nathan McKinnon will, like all the best players will at some point in their careers. So it's not unusual that a guy that makes that much money in Elias Pettersson is struggling with his confidence. It is unusual that it's gone on for this long, and that, it's gotten to the point where he's got to have the conversations that a guy like me, who was never really in the lineup, would have to have with the coach. Like, that's the conversation that the 7th defenseman or the 13th forward goes up to him and said, listen, I haven't played in 3 weeks. Clearly, I don't do enough for your lineup. What can I do here, to kind of get better? Can I go on the ice beforehand? Like, how do I keep myself ready? That's not the conversation that the $11.6 million number one centerman needs to have. But that goes back to him, talking yesterday about his season and where he thinks it's at. It's like, clearly this guy is willing to, have the hard talk that normally that type of player wouldn't have and try and figure things out. So it's a good sign. It's a step in the right direction. Now he's got to implement it and execute it. And that's where that's like the hardest part, is actually doing it. We can have the talk. You can say what you want to say. You have to actually do it and put it into action. And that still remains the hardest part.
Moving on, but staying with Canucks stars, Tocchet mused yesterday about maybe just shutting Hughes down for a week and seeing if that will be more helpful than, a player who is at practice and then leaving practice and game time decisions. What's your sense? Is it smart to play the long game? Maybe, try and play 3 games without Quinn Hughes, let him rest for a full week and see if he can get back healthier, or is he so instrumental that you think in this playoff race every game matters and every point matters, and
80% Hughes is fine.
Yeah, but I guess when do we learn our lesson about playing guys that are hurt and running them into the ground for what? I mean, like, Pettersson has clearly been dealing with things, and now, he's not able to really kind of get over whatever has been lingering for him. I'm not saying you will, but do you want to go down that same road with Hughes if you really try and squeeze it all out of him here and do more damage? I get that you're in a playoff race, but Quinn Hughes is bigger than a 2-month playoff race. He's the cornerstone of your franchise. He's one of the most important players to his team in the NHL. And while he will help you win games at 80%, the long term of making a guy like that play through things, which he's a warrior and he's likely not going to say no and he wants to be out there. But I just think with him, there's such a long-term, there should be anyways, a long-term vision in mind. And let's be honest with ourselves, okay? If Vancouver gets into the playoffs this year, like, are they going to make a run for the Stanley Cup? Is this the year that you're going to make a run for a Stanley Cup with no Demko, Pettersson not playing well, and then Hughes playing at 75, 80% by the time you get to that point? No, it's not happening. So, like, what do you're really going to sacrifice the health of your star player just for, I don't know, just for a round or a couple home games? I don't know. I don't see the value in that. And quite frankly, like, when it comes to Hughes anyways, he should have been one of those guys where it's like, you take as much time as you need and you come back when you're 110% healthy, because you're way too important to the long-term success of this franchise. So I absolutely think that if he needs a week off, he should take that week off.
Well, this one was a no-brainer for me versus the Ducks. Like, definitely give him the night off. Then he's almost got a week off immediately because they had their last big break on the schedule of these 3 days off. To me, this was a no-brainer for me. Lekramaki gets the call up.
He had practice, and this is a much better Anaheim team.
Oh, totally. But it's, again, look at who's coming up. Wild, Dallas. I mean, you might need him there. Lekramaki comes up. I don't think he feels the pressure to be the goal-scoring savior, but you tell me, what a guy like that's ripping it up in the AHL right now, but he's still just a kid. What do you think he's thinking jumping back into the lineup?
I think a guy like that is not thinking of, I need to be the goal scorer for the team. He's thinking, I need to get a few so I can stick around and not go back down, or at least solidify myself. So, like, I know that I have the confidence, next year coming into camp or making the team out of camp, that I know the right spots to go to. I know how I can beat guys. I know how I can beat goaltenders. Like that's more where his head would be at. Like it would be unfair to put, the team's lack of goal scoring onto a kid like that, but he'll have his own internal pressure. And it may make it seem like it's, he's thinking about himself, but by doing that, you make the team better. Because you arrive and you're in the right frame of mind, you're doing the right things at the NHL level. But I think that's where the pressure would come from him. It's like, let's figure this out. The quicker I could figure out how to score in the NHL, the quicker I'm only playing in the NHL, and it's not this shuttle back and forth from Abbotsford to Vancouver, for another season.
Filip Chytil is second in the league in zone entry since he became a Vancouver Canuck, behind only Connor McDavid.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's a small sample size, but is there a chance Filip Chytil could find another level, do you think?
Dude, I was saying that it's all about health. Like, I was really optimistic about Filip Chytil when Vancouver acquired him. The only thing is the health and the concussion history. He's a good player. He's crafty with the puck. He's got good wheels. He's willing to hang on to it. Like, he's made some plays now as a member of the Canucks that we didn't see as much, prior to his arrival this year. Like some stuff where you're like, that's interesting. Like they weren't doing that, for before he got there this year. And I think part of him playing in New York was that he was never going to get past his role on that team. So he was kind of stuck there. I think now in Vancouver, there's more of a role for him to carve out. And if he just has that same creative self, that'll be good for him, good for the team. But I truly think as long as he's healthy, there is more than what he has been as a member of the New York Rangers, and surround him with good players as well, which always makes a difference. He's got a really nice skill set for sure.
On trade deadline, Frank, the general manager, has come out and basically said the team hasn't performed to the place where it has earned rentals. He also said he doesn't envision taking a backwards step, which sounds to me like not willing to trade their rentals. Would you be okay if the Vancouver Canucks did absolutely nothing this week?
I guess that's what I'm bracing for, Matt. I think I'm bracing for them to just do nothing. Because if you trade Besser, okay, you recoup an asset, but your team doesn't score and you moved on from a guy that scores. So now you're not any closer. You're not really addressing any of the things that you need to. But we know it's an organization that values that first round of the playoffs, right? Like there's a business element to that as well. But I think, yeah, I agree with his assessment that they don't deserve a rental. Like you're not going to go out and spend assets to bring in rentals this year. I think, when it comes to Besser, you would have to be getting some kind of young player that you think is kind of popping into your roster, similar to the deal that you got with the Rangers, where you got a couple guys that you think can play. But like that's not going to be out there for a rental that may or may not re-sign with the team because his ticket is going to be, $8 million in a lot of terms. So I think that's what I'm expecting. Vancouver is just going to sit there and say, we're going to try and make the playoffs with who we got, and we'll retackle the Besser thing, whenever we can, or if we can agree to it, that's great. And if not, then we didn't get an asset, and we tried to make the playoffs with who we have.
Do you, if they do nothing, handicap their chances for me of making the playoffs in this derby with all these teams now suddenly a little closer in the West?
So them, Calgary, St. Louis, and Utah, I'd probably put out of the
Anaheim if they win tonight too. Maybe,
yeah, Anaheim.
Right?
It's crazy to think that Anaheim's not that far back. 38%. 38%.
He quantified
out of those
it for
four.
us.
Is that reasonable or no?
I think that's right. I think it's on the number almost for Money Puck and some of these models out there. I think that's sort
I
of.
swear to God, I didn't look at Money Puck. Sometimes I do, and I'll cheat. I swear, but this time I didn't. I swear to God.
I was expecting no math. I was told there would be no math.
Okay, this was my math. okay, 4 teams, 25% each, okay? I have to give the Canucks, based on, who they have, who they can be, a little bit more. And I think there's a team that I probably have to give a little bit less to, and that would have been Utah. So that's where,
and they're ahead of a couple of
math.
those teams as well, right?
Well,
so
and they have games in hand. They still have 2 games in hand on St. Louis, right?
Yeah. Marvelous stuff, Frank. What are your duties and responsibilities on Friday, and do they involve interacting with the primate?
No, I haven't heard if there's any animals coming in, but I will be manning the big board, the trade bait board, and we have some touchscreen technology this year, which is great.
Oh, like election.
You're going
Kornacki.
I'm John King.
You're
this
going
year.
Steve Kornacki, John King on the big wall.
Wow.
I'm John King. I'm John King this year, boys. Yeah,
awesome.
We're gonna get into Mariposa County.
I was
going to get into Allegheny County.
You're going to want to know which polls have yet to return for Mariposa and Allegheny.
Two big counties
Pinellas,
we're watching.
too.
Mariposa County and Broward County. 2016, 2020, 2024. These were the counties. No,
Absolutely.
I can't tell you. This is my slogan. I can't tell you who won Broward County in 2020 and 2024, but I could tell you who your team should trade for to win the Stanley Cup in 2025.
Amazing.
There's your slogan. Put it on the business
We're
card.
always watching Broward and Dade. Ever since 2000, you have to watch Broward and Dade.
Broward and Dade. Man, that'd be a nice place to live. Broward County or Dade County, Fort Lauderdale or Miami.
Yeah, not so bad. Not so bad. Marvelous stuff. Best of luck on Friday. Look forward to the show, and we'll catch up next week.
Thanks, boys. Have a good one.